turn your page again. You're on page 155. You do see on page 154 a list of the high priests and some details about that, but we've got those high priests mentioned here. And meanwhile, in Jerusalem, we've gone through this. This is Judea, who got Alexander the Great, Onias the First, Simon the First, Eleazar, Manasseh. We're going to eventually pick up again here with a guy named Onias or Onias the Second. So let's take this, and let me tell you another story here, if you don't mind. And this is kind of important also. Now, we're talking about Onias the Second is the high priest. And he's got a brother named Tobias. Now, if you know anything about what we've been talking about, whoever is the high priest has a lot of power, especially this time. There's a lot of corrupt high priests. But Onias is not real smart. Even Josephus records he's not intelligent. He's lazy. He's not diligent. He's supposed to be sending money down to Egypt. So here's our map again. Here's Jerusalem. Here's Egypt. Ptolemy is because he controls Judah. You see, he controls Judah. Their tax money goes to Egypt. Now, eventually their tax money is going to go to Syria until the Romans come, and their tax money is going to go to Rome. Now, America needs to kind of follow that model and get that idea of who you tax. But, it's not about that. But nonetheless, we're going to see another example here. Antiochus III is going to go to war with Rome. And I'm sure I'll mention it again if I don't mention now. But he loses the war to Rome, and the Rome says, well, you owe us for that war. That cost us a bunch of money. So he's got to spend the rest of his life and his son's life trying to raise money to pay for the war that Rome had to spend putting down his revolt. So it wasn't like they came in and rebuilt his country for him. They just says, we need money. And then he had to figure out where he's going to get it. And that's going to lead to a lot of events that were going to take place. Okay, so now we got Jerusalem sending their money down to Egypt. But Onias, who is not very diligent and a sluggard, he doesn't send it for a couple of years. So what happens, you can see right here, there's some names that are mentioned here, but a guy by the name of Athenion, A-T-H-E-N-I-O-N, A-T-H-E-N-I-O-N, that won't be on the test. Ptolemy sends Athenion up to Jerusalem to say, hey, where is my money? Well, Onias has a brother named Tobias who's got a son named Joseph. Joseph opens his house up to Athenion, and he spends the evening there kind of wining and dining him, and decides, hey, I'll follow you back, I'll talk to Ptolemy and see if we can resolve this problem. So Joseph, the high priest's nephew, the son of Tobias, goes back to Egypt to speak with Ptolemy about his uncle's failure to pay his tribute, or the taxes for the country, from the temple. And on his way there, there's men that are talking, and they're talking about, we're going back, we're collecting our money and turning our money in. We collect money from up here in the coastline of Syria that's occupied by Egypt. We collect money from the Phoenicians. We collect money from Judah. We collect money from we collect money from all these, and we bring the money back down. He goes, how do you get that kind of a job? That sounds like a great job. What's your job? I collect money. He said, well, I'd like a piece of that action. They said, no, it's all locked in. So when he gets down to apologize for Uncle Onias, the high priest, he says, I could fix this for you. If you just let me be the tax collector, I could take care of this for you in Judah. He said, well, that position's already taken. He said, well, how much is it? So Joseph buys the position of tax collector in Judah. And for the next 22 years, Joseph is the tax collector. He collects the money from all the citizens and everywhere that he needs to get money from, and sends it down to Ptolemy. Of course, takes his cut off the top. And it's the best job. Who needs to be the high priest anymore? Because he's now got a very prominent position now. He is the tax collector in charge of it. And he's sent back with 2,000 men to assist him in getting this job done. We've just introduced the Jewish tax collector into the system, the culture, which is going to play big, of course, in the Gospels. They're going to be called publicans. Matthew was a tax collector. Our story about tax collecting is not over. Just remember, Joseph, I'll just tell you a little bit ahead of the story here. Joseph now is the tax collector. He's going to have two wives. I mean, if you're a tax collector, you got extra money, get two of them. So he's got wife one, and she's going to have 7 sons. He's got wife 2, and she's going to have 1 son, Hyrcanus. I don't think there's an H in there. Hyrcanus right there. And this is for a story for another in about 5 minutes. These 7 sons and this son are the sons of Joseph the tax collector, and this son is going to make a move on his dad's business. And we'll pick that up in just a moment, but you remember where that came from, because this is not all, this is going to end up coming right up, this is going to move right into the position of this right here. Here's Onias the second. We've got Simon the second, and Onias or Onias the third, a very good high priest. But now we've got a brother, Jason of Onias. Somehow Onias is going to get knocked off. His brother's going to become the high priest. He's going to get bought up by Menelaus and Hyrcanus, who are no longer from the tribe of Levi. And now you've got Antiochus Epiphanes selling the priesthood. Now the priesthood is being sold from the Syrians down. You understand what I just said? Right now they're dealing with Egypt. But by the time we get from, this we're at right here, by the time we get to these people, the Seleucids now control Jerusalem, and they're taxing them, and now they're buying the priesthood from the Syrians. And this is going to lead to the Maccabean. This whole thing is setting the stage for the Maccabean revolt. Okay, so we got a tax collector. He's going to do that for 22 years, and he's going to run into some trouble with one of his sons, Hyrcanus, in just a little bit. Okay, that is what's taking place between the second, third and fourth Syrian War. We are now on page 155, the year 219. And now we are in the fourth. We got the Syrian War number 4. Here's Egypt, Jerusalem. This is the solution, and probably you understand that. Okay. The year right around 219. Antiochus III, up here. Antiochus III, or Antiochus Magus, or Antiochus the Great. And he's got to have a lot of verses about him here in the Scriptures. This would be the father of Antiochus the Fourth. That sounds dumb to even say that. But Antiochus the Great is going to be the father of Antiochus Epiphanes, which is the forerunner or the Antichrist of the Maccabean revolt. I did pass a coin around last week with his image on it that he minted from Antiochus III. So it's a real Greek coin from that time period that we had here last week. No one stole. Okay, Antiochus III wants to reclaim Syria. Again, he wants Judah, he wants the coastline. So he's going to make a move for that. He takes Israel's cities. He begins to come down here. He takes some Israelite cities, but Ptolemy, which would be Ptolemy the Fourth, defeats him. Now watch this. Ptolemy the Fourth has now just defeated Antiochus, and he returns to Jerusalem. Ptolemy the Fourth returns to Jerusalem. And he's protected, he's regained the Israelite cities that were taken from him. He returns through Jerusalem and wants to worship in the temple. So they welcome him. He gives gifts to the Jews. They're his people. He's ruling them. They're paying their taxes. Joseph's doing a good job. Everything looks fine up here, but it's about to unravel. And he gets to the temple, and like so many Gentile leaders, Alexander didn't want to do this, but Pompey did it with the Romans. Ptolemy the Fourth says, I really want to go into the temple. I don't just want to stand here and look at it and offer. I want to go into the temple. He says, you can't do that. Gentiles can't do that. Only the high priest can do that on certain days, or the priests that are working in the holy place. Nonetheless, he begins to approach it. Now, as the story goes, now stay with me on this. Let me just say this. I don't want to discredit everything I'm going to say. But we are no longer reading Scripture. We've got prophecy, but how the stories come down to us, they're not scriptural accounts. They're from the book of Maccabees. They're recorded by Josephus. And at some point, again, you understand, I believe the Bible, all its integrity, the Bible is without error. It is exactly the same. But we're no longer reading the Bible. We've got stories coming down to us. And as we got a couple strange stories coming. Parting of the Red Sea was strange. I have no trouble with that. That's in the Bible. But as Ptolemy the Fourth approached the temple, he was struck down, almost left half dead. I mean, it's like he had a stroke or something. And he never recovers from having approached the temple. Now, again, I have no doubt that happened. I just can't tell you that's exactly history. You know, I mean, it's just that's what the Jews recorded that happened to him as he approached the temple. We've got another couple stories like that coming. He was struck down and returned to Egypt, in a sense, half alive. I mean, he's now hanging on to his life, but now he's mad at the Jews, and he begins to persecute the Jews in the city called Alexandria. And Alexandria, we've talked about before. Obviously, it came from the day that Alexander put a city there. He had some of his soldiers stay there and make a city. They retired and stayed there and made a city. But it's building up as far as Jewish population. In this time, all the way up until Jesus, when Jesus goes down to Egypt, it may have been Alexandria, Egypt he went to. It's a huge Jewish population.